Simple question for you to start, Rich. What happens next?
You know, it is really anyone's guess. You've now got this hostile offer, tender offer from the Ellisons and from Paramount. Obviously, shareholders are going to have to, really look at this. I mean, you've got, the offers are very different, right? Because one is for just the streaming and studios, and you're going to end up with a resulting stub equity that is the cable network piece. And, depending on how that's valued, it could be anywhere from, $1.50 to $4 or $5 like a share. And so it all depends on sort of how that trades ultimately. And do investors want to sort of bet on the value of that entity, own some Netflix equity, as well as get $20 plus $23 of cash? So this is not a simple equation. Obviously, we know from Warner Brothers that they believe that the Netflix offer was superior. They think it was $31 or $32 a share in effective value. Will some investors want to take 30 in cash? There may be, and I think that's going to be the question, but can they get enough of the shares to actually block the transaction? I think that's what essentially Paramount would now be hoping for, is that enough people tender their shares that they can stop Netflix and force them to abandon the offer.
If I may, to recap, the Netflix offer was $27.75, but only for the streaming and studios bit, right? The Paramount Skydance $30 bid was for the entirety of it. If we put the deal making and the arbitrage to one side, which makes most sense based on the current state of the media and entertainment landscape?
Look, we're at a point now in the entertainment landscape where the industry is going through seismic change. Movie theater attendance is down 50% from before COVID. Forget about box office, but actually, sort of people attending movies in the U.S., you're down nearly 50%. You're seeing most of the major streaming companies out there really scale back their ambitions. And that's Warner Brothers. That's, if you look at what's happened with Peacock, none of them are as aggressive. Disney and Hulu have certainly reduced their overall aggressiveness in how much content they're making. Like, everyone is realizing how streaming is so hard. And so the reality is consolidation is certainly necessary. And I don't think this is the last transaction we're going to see. I think you're going to actually see this set off. There's going to be a knock-on effects from whoever ends up buying this. You're going to see other things happen. Is there a story to tell for both companies? Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that if you put Warner Brothers into Netflix, the ability to do far more with that library than has ever been done before, looking at that global platform and how they've able to sort of surface content. I mean, all of this content's been sitting on HBO Max and no one really watches it. That's what Netflix does really well, is they get people to watch things throughout the library in a way that others cannot. Right, that algorithm is so powerful. Paramount buying it, look, Paramount needs more scale. If Paramount doesn't buy this, my guess is they're going to go after something else in the space, whether that's NBC Universal, whether that's Sony. Like, I don't think Paramount is going to sit still. They want to get bigger. Look, they may just spend a lot of money. I mean, Ellison family has a tremendous amount of capital. Yeah. Will they just use that to fund far greater investment than they were previously in Paramount? That might be another angle here. I mean, we've always said Paramount doesn't have to have that because they have one of the wealthiest families in the world backing them.
They've got more than the wealthiest family in the world. They've got Middle Eastern money helping them with this, it would transpire. Does that change the storytelling, Rich?
Well, I think what's interesting is there was this perception on Wall Street that this was just Larry Ellison, writing a check to buy all of this. And what it actually turns out is that Larry's only writing a $12 billion check. He's backstopping a larger portion, but the actual check he's writing is $12 billion. And three Middle East entities are actually investing $24 billion. I don't know if that played into, I mean, they say there's no CFIUS concerns, but you do wonder whether the largest sort of, as a group, the Middle East being the single largest sort of equity contributor to this deal, I wonder if that played a role in concern around this transaction. We'll see. It's funny how there's been so much sort of industry uproar around Netflix buying Warner Brothers. I wonder, as people start to understand more of what's inside the Paramount bid, as you just said, Caroline, will we see more pushback on the Paramount bid? I don't know. I mean, I think, all of these bids there certainly are issues. And look, from if you think about sort of from an antitrust standpoint, Disney bought Fox. That seemed, Disney was at the pinnacle height of the industry when they bought Fox, and that was approved during Trump 1. It's hard to believe that this transaction ultimately gets blocked. Either one of them gets blocked.
Right.
I think obviously the Netflix will probably take longer than the Paramount one, but I don't think there's any quick approval. A lot of states are going to be frustrated by, both of these bids. Foreign countries are going to be frustrated. So I think there's a long regulatory review process, meaning over 12 months, maybe even 18 months for both of these companies.
And YouTube gets brought into that, Rich, more. Will we understand what a competitive threat that is?
Look, there's 3 layers to this. Is streaming a distinct market? Is streaming in linear TV? Like there are people watching us right now, Carolyn, who, are watching linear TV and have Bloomberg TV and have CNBC and all of these channels. Like, it's hard to sort of believe that, FX and ABC and CBS don't really compete with Netflix. And then you've obviously got the larger threat of like, well, YouTube has Sunday Ticket. Like, where do you watch Sunday Ticket? Now you watch it on YouTube. Can you really say that YouTube is not a competitor to Netflix? And so it gets very challenging to define what the market is. And I think you're going to see a real difficulty in the government, trying to not just say what the market is, but actually back that up in court. I look forward to seeing how they actually try to prevent either of these 2 transactions.